I'm Bubba O'Keefe, and I'm with Visit Clarksdale in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and I want you to know I'm here with Danny Coleman of Danny Coleman's Rock on Radio, and he's here in Clarksdale, Mississippi with me, where the first rock and roll song ever recorded was written, Rocket 88, by Jackie Brenston and Ike Turner. We hope you come to see us, and hope you tune in to Rock on Radio. Can you salvage that?
Producer Claire.
I miss that accent so much.
Bubba?
Just the Mississippi accent.
Do you know why he asked if I could salvage that? Because that was like his third or fourth shot at it. I have the whole unedited version.
I know. I was on the other side of the wall. I heard.
Of course, we can use it some other time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock on Radio. I am your host, Danny Coleman. Producer Claire is here, and we are coming to you from the 2 Tracks studios of Deco Entertainment. And, boy, it's way too early to lose my train of thought.
Senior moment.
It's going around.
Exactly. Well, Rock on Radio. Actually, speaking of Bubba, we got news today.
Yeah.
In that text thread that he's going to be in a runoff. Now, is that for the
Democratic mayoral
primary
position? Yeah. And then the actual official mayoral race is in June. June 1st.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's a Democratic city, so basically he has to beat just the other guy that they're running off with, and then usually, I think that's what Christine was kind of alluding to, that whoever wins that runoff will most likely win.
The other guy.
But yeah.
When he races against the other guy. Okay.
Right. So April's probably the bigger runoff.
And he's running against Red Fadden's kid.
Yeah.
Both 2 local legends.
Well, I mean, if you want somebody to be a mayor, might as well be a local person, right?
Oh,
it's
true.
better. They have more interest in your town. But to have 2, then it's hard to choose. That's why this runoff.
And we have, in the future, we have more Clarksdale
yes, we do.
snippets, and we have a little surprise show coming down the road of...
Surprise! It's not started yet.
Yeah, true. But...
I had to get my daughter's play done first.
Correct. So we have to do that show. We've got interviews with Bubba, interviews with Eric Meyer, Chili Billy,
Roger,
Deke. We've got so much stuff we can use at that point. So, but this radio program, Rock on Radio, is sponsored by O'Connor's American Bar and Grill of East Hampton, Mount Holly, New Jersey, the official caterers of Rock on Radio, O'Connor's American Bar and Grill. Phoenix Art Supply and Framing, located on Route 611, otherwise known as Southeastern Road in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Phoenix Art Supplies and Framing have been providing quality art supplies and framing for more than 40 years. So check them out. The Jersey Shore Jazz and Blues Foundation, who took us to Clarksdale.
Yes, they did. And took us back.
And brought us back, which was very important. JSJBF.org, and you can see everything they are up to. And there is the blog up there from that I submitted
Your
from
very
our
excellent blog, yes.
To Clarksdale. I thank you very much. I appreciate that. Lillipie's of Princeton, located inside the Princeton Shopping Center at 301 North Harrison Street. Lillipie's makes fantastic baked goods, little hand grenades of happiness that we eat until we explode. Go to Lillipie's of Princeton, located inside the Princeton Shopping Center. Asbury Park Vibes. go to asburyparkvibes.com. If you are a band or a solo artist, or you want to listen to one of the finest podcasts done by Diane and Doug, if you need a photographer, they have 15 on staff. They do press releases and website bios. Go to asburyparkvibes.com. NewJerseyStage.com. Gary graciously allows us to air this program on NewJerseyStage.com, otherwise known as the Penguin Rocks, or AsburyMusic.com. Any of those will take you to the fine lineup of radio shows that he has. Matt Mrawicki does several programs on there, Jersey Music.
The famed Stone Pony alumni.
Yes, correct. And he does several radio shows on thepenguinrocks.com, which all can be found, once again, at NewJerseyStage.com. My column this week was my interview with Jim McCarty, the original drummer and still current drummer, only original member of the Yardbirds.
Wow.
Left on tour. So
Very cool.
they were just at the Sellersville Theater on April 3rd. So Jim, it was funny because he said to me, we're only going to do 11 of these shows across the United States.
Wow.
But it's a show where it's kind of like one of these deals where you, one of these storytelling type events where he comes out from behind a drum kit, tells a story about the song, and behind them on a large screen, very similar to the one we have here,
Right.
is
Are we allowed to talk about this place? I feel like we're in like the Bat Cave, and its proprietary intelligence should be.
It is incredible, isn't it? Nobody knows you're here either.
That's right. And you could scream and no one would know you're here.
Yeah, 'cause the room sound
Well, that's somewhat foreboding, actually, having just met you.
Just let you know.
Just give me a fair warning.
You know what happened? You know what happened to our last guest?
No.
Neither is anybody else.
Oh, no.
I
But
told you to bring somebody.
so
It's true.
at any, no, I forget where I was going with this.
Well, when you went to Clarksville, did you take a plane?
The last
or
train
the
to
last-
Clarksdale.
Yeah. Okay. Just wondering how you got back.
We flew into Memphis.
Oh, okay.
And then the people we were with, we rented cars. And then we all caravan.
So you weren't
down.
walking in Memphis.
Nope.
No.
Not with our
No.
feet 10 feet.
I've done
feet
that
off the
before,
wheel.
but not this current time.
Gotcha.
Well, technically we were. We were at the airport, so we were walking
That's right. But not on Beale.
because from the rental car to the gate is about
20 miles.
60 miles, I think,
Oh.
by foot. So, yeah.
They had those little path, those that you could
You
just.
should have written a blues song.
I should have. You're right. I should have written a blues
Down
song.
there, I've been walking too long.
Got blisters on my feet.
You kind of sounded like that, so you probably did write a blues song.
Well, when you, you know why I have a blister on my foot because I set myself on fire.
Yeah, well.
She was pretty
Smokeless.
funny. I was smoking a cigar and this really nasty wind blows up. Like there was a day that there were tornadoes like 50 miles east of where we were. Nasty wind, and I go to put the cigar out and it just blows the frame right off the flame right off the cigar, the ash, the whole bit. I was sitting next to a small table and somehow the ash got between the table and the ashtray was on the left, and the ash got between the table and my leg on the right. Instantly put 2 holes in my shorts. I'm like, ow, okay, I put that out. She comes out, and she's like, why is your foot on fire? What? I look down, I'm like, ah! A piece of ember snuck between my shoe and my skin and my foot. I got like a dime-sized blister, and it's right where the shoe rubs. So every time it starts to heal, put my shoes on, and it breaks it open again.
Maybe you have a future as a coal walker.
Maybe I could probably. We
Or
could probably
not.
go to a
Or
bar
not.
and make a lot of money.
No, not the way that blister happened. You ain't.
Well, I
mean,
didn't
you
know I was
feel
on
it.
fire.
Well, no sense, no feeling.
Whoa, 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 Danny's on fire.
That's right.
You were smoking.
True story. True story. Sinister Footwear. Go to sinisterfw.com. Check out the crazy socks that Tina sells.
Make sure you get the fireproof ones.
That's right. Fireproof socks. You're going to fit right in, my friend. Fireproof socks. See if she has any. Go to sinisterfw.com and use the promo code DCRSOCKS at checkout. You'll get 10% off your order.
Yes.
Dee Dee's Lights. Dee Dee is the official Chandler of Rock On Radio. She is our candle maker. Did you smell that candle yet?
So good. Yes. It's
Well, you
actually
did.
my favorite now. Yeah.
Oh,
I do like it.
all right. You got
Good choice.
You got the $10.
$10?
Yeah.
For what?
Let's give you one half price.
Oh, I had to pay for it?
All right, I'll let you have it.
It's my birthday. You can give it to me for my birthday.
That's true. There you go. It's for your birthday.
That's right.
That's right. Producer Claire's
It was
birthday
cute.
was recently. How
Yeah.
was your birthday?
It's very nice. My daughter had her closing night for her Little Mermaid, and I had built most of the sets. So the kids all called me up.
Your daughter has a Little Mermaid?
She was in the Little Mermaid. She was the one of the Merce sisters. She looked really cute. And yeah, they called me up to thank me, gave me flowers for doing the sets and stuff and the costumes and things. And
Sounds fantastic.
yeah, it was really cute. And then they all they roll a keyboard out, and then they go bloom, and then they all start singing "Happy Birthday." It was really cute, like the whole auditorium. So
Oh, very
yeah,
nice.
it was very nice. Yeah,
Excellent.
Most of my kids were there, so it was nice.
That's because they want you to do the sets next year.
Well, it's funny because my daughter's going to be a senior next year, and then the lady was like, "Oh man, I'm going to lose you after that," and I'm like, "Who said I'm doing this for her?" You got me as long as you're here. I love doing this. So
Oh, I see.
I did it last year. She wasn't in it. I did Matilda's sets.
I recall.
Yeah, I just thought I loved doing that stuff.
Oh, see that?
I used my art degree. My father would be happy.
As opposed to a liberal arts degree, I suppose.
I did not have.
Nobody could figure out what to do with one of those.
Oh, I mean, mine technically was a liberal.
I remember
liberal
when my
arts
nephew
college.
went to college. He's now 47.
Okay.
He went to college. And I remember him coming home and his mother saying, "So what is this degree going to be in?" And he told her, and she's like, "What the heck are humanities?" I'm like, they're those things that swim in Florida, aren't they? The huge manatees? I don't know what that. But needless to say, he's never used his degree in humanities. He does payroll now.
I do payroll too. I
See?
use my art degree doing payroll and
We all
HR.
use humanities every day in traffic.
Yeah.
Humanities and profanities is the name of my new record.
Yes. Oh, I like that title. I like it.
You guys can have half the publishing.
Nice.
Right? We also have our beer sponsor.
Oh.
We have partnered with Tyndall Road Brewing in Bordentown, New Jersey, located at 102 Farnsworth Avenue. I have to reach out to Marcy because she has not told me what the new beers are, so I have to go there and sample them.
Of course you do. It'd only be right.
Wait.
In 2 more weeks.
3.
Through April, it's Sin Business.
Okay. Yeah, because you gave up beer for Lent.
But this is work. This isn't pleasure.
It was his decision.
I'll go on a
It's between him
Sunday.
and
was
God.
his-
Let's stay out of it.
I'll go on a Sunday.
That's okay. I'm just saying, you're the one that chose it.
Yeah.
We
And
went-
everywhere we went in Clarksdale, I'm
Well,
thinking
maybe they're coming out with a non-alcoholic brew. Those are getting very popular. Maybe.
He had root beer, which
Well-
technically is beer. So if you think about it, you really shouldn't have had the root beer.
There's probably some elegant way out of this situation, Danny. I wish you luck.
Thank
Well,
you very
we
much.
had our show from Tyndall Road Brewery on Ash Wednesday.
And
I
I'm
was
like,
and
oh,
he's
cool.
like, I gave up beer for Lent.
Well,
I'm like,
given that his foot just got on fire recently, is rather thematic. It's kind of like a
That's right.
serendipity at play all coming
See, you're
together.
playing
Well,
with
if I
the
had beer, I
thing.
could have poured it down my shoe and taken care of that situation.
Well, if you had beer, that's probably why you were getting embers.
That's right. Correct.
That's right.
You know. Well, I do tend to linger.
Yes, the
So
devil does linger.
we know who else lingers.
Yep.
So That could be why there was
Could be.
flamage involved.
It's true.
Correct.
It's true.
Right. Do I have any other sponsors left? I've totally lost track of where I'm
Well,
Sounds like you need a 12-step sponsor, Danny.
I do. No, I need a nap. I don't need
okay.
12 steps. I need a nap.
Oh, okay.
well, last week was Doylestown Music Fest, and they said they wanted to be a sponsor.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, which
might
takes
wanna add
place
them
June
through
1st to
first.
8th. Apparently, we are the co-MCs on June 7th, the day of the big block bash.
I'll let you MC. I'll just be there.
You'll just what?
I'll be there to help
You'll
out.
just be there.
Yeah. I'll just tell you what you need to say. I'll handle it.
Yeah, you're my handler.
That's right.
Correct. Apparently, I need a handler.
That's right. Or a producer. Either way.
True. Is that it?
You need a posse.
Yeah, I do.
He has a posse.
I do.
You have all your friends that hang out. But tomorrow night you'll have a posse.
Tomorrow, that's right. Happy hour.
Oh, well, it was.
So we're good to go, right?
You are?
Yep. And how can they find us, Claire?
They go to dcror.com, which is the short link for Danny Coleman's rockonradio.com.
Facebook is Danny Coleman's Rock on Radio 2, the number 2. And Instagram at Rock on Radio, all one word, all capital letters. Well, this our guest this evening, this has been a long time in the making.
I've heard.
Since the show started. I can't believe we haven't done this since Rock on Radio has been on the air for almost 17 years now. Or 16 years now. Yeah,
Well, it's been 16.
So
We're past
April
that.
26th will be our 16th anniversary.
Oh, that's
Because
17.
last year we had the 15th anniversary
Oh,
party
that's right.
at Salty's.
Oh, that's right.
Why is it that okay.
Oh, no.
There,
I'm afraid.
there have been a lot of people that I've interviewed over the years who, after I've interviewed them, not on this show, but like people call me for my column and everything, who somehow pass away after I interview.
Oh, great. That's just wonderful, Danny.
You don't do it at the beginning of the show.
Not you.
I was wondering what that moat and the alligators were all about. Now I know.
We locked you in.
Not anybody on this show that's ever come on this show.
Okay.
There you go. So you're safe.
Like I interviewed Larry Coryell, and 3 months later he passed away. I had a meet and greet with Johnny Winter, and 7 or 8 months later he passed away.
Did we shake hands? Oh, damn it. We
So
hugged.
we had our 15th
Hug
anniversary
of
party,
death.
and we had the 15th anniversary party at Salty's Beach Bar, and now it's closed down.
And it's-
Oh, so it's not just mortal beings. It can be entities
Anything,
of business
yep.
enterprises, whatever. Okay.
you've heard of
You
the
should start a consultation side hustle.
sad sack, like, or pig pen when the cloud follows him.
So that's how that happens. But
That's
tonight-
too bad. Salty's was cool.
yeah, I
it
know
really
it was a
was.
great room. But now, so this has been a long time coming, and you sent me some points of interest, and which you didn't have to do because I find you interesting anyway.
Well, thank you.
But
It's probably a prerequisite for having a guest, I would imagine. It probably.
no,
No?
He doesn't script the thing.
You just go to Wawa parking lot.
I
Like,
just
yo,
pretty
what are you
much-
doing, man?
Yep.
come here,
Come on in.
That's right.
Let's talk about life for a little while.
That's
Well,
basically
I
it.
didn't, I didn't realize that you were in Phantom's Opera, and you're gonna have to explain to me about some of these things here. But
Where do you want me to start?
well, I'm going to introduce you first.
Oh, that's
and-
probably a good idea. My name is
Please.
Hank. I was just in the Wawa getting some hazelnut, and I just met this fella here, and I don't know.
Bobby.
I got out of the back of the trunk. I was in Clarksville, and now I'm in some place called New Jersey, but it's nothing on there. Anyway,
What? We took the restraints off. What are you worried about?
yeah, but the door's locked,
Yeah, that's true. And there's 3 of them.
and then Doberman pinchers.
It's like our guest came in last week, and she's like, "This is like the old Get Smart television show. You get doors that open in different directions."
Yeah, it's really indescribable. Anyway,
Please welcome Coleman Brice to Rock On Radio.
finally, it's probably 12 or 15 years since you invited me. I'm glad I could finally make it out of the Maine woods and stumble back to Jersey to do this.
Yeah, well, I want to kind of I want to shed some light on that.
Uh-oh.
Like you said, it's probably been about 12 or 15 years. And I've had, when I first invited you, I had hair that wasn't gray and a lot more of it. I was probably, I don't know, 350 pounds lighter.
I think you're playing drums for Joe Weimer.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That was
So whatever that was, 2011?
2000, maybe even earlier than that, 9, 10.
That was a
Something
good little
like
band
that.
you guys had going there.
No, 2011. You're right, because I started the show in April of 09. So yeah, yep.
Yeah, I recall we shared the same bill on a couple things.
Yeah, I used to. I still sit in with Joe every now and then. Not on the kit. She does a lot more acoustic stuff these days.
Oh, cool.
But I sit in with her every now and then. So you are here for, well, go ahead, Coley. Tell us all about you and what you have going on, your past, what your involvement now with Asbury Media. We've got 2 hours of nothing but Coleman Brice. Go
Let's
ahead.
start somewhere. Phantom's Opera?
All right.
Okay, so
So you're a musician. Let's start there.
Yes, I'm a singer, songwriter. I'm a left-handed Stratocaster abuser. I do a lot of solo acoustic stuff now. Play piano and self-produce. I've self-produced over 40 solo albums in my life, and been on a whole bunch of other records for other people. Some you've heard, some you haven't. Yeah, I'm a lifer musician for sure. I've also been deeply involved in the industry business side of music as well, which has, these are broad subjects. But yeah, with getting back to the Phantom's Opera thing, so I graduated from Sayreville High School, and around that time there was another neighborhood band that was doing really well called Bon Jovi. I had just helped pick out the songs on an album called Slippery When Wet. There's a bunch of us teenage kids that were gathered in a room at his parents' house, and we listened to these 16-track demos that were recorded at Century Sound on Washington Road in Sayreville, which is ironically where my fiance lives, only a few blocks down, on a side note. So I was, a high school musician. My first band was named Gemini, and because of the impact of Bon Jovi's, it was really they're obviously still a huge band, but at that time it was like Sayreville was Liverpool. There was Japanese fans that were just making pilgrimages and just driving around the block trying to capture any glimpse of him. It was. And I don't know if you've ever been to Sayreville. It's not a very flashy town. It's a working class, industrial tinged kind of. There's not much there, So it was kind of a surreal time to be in that scene. I had just started my first band, Gemini, and we benefited from the success of Bon Jovi because there was just an increasing interest in all things Sayreville just by default. So. Where I was in this embryonic young band as a teenager that, our first show, we sold out this club called Mingles on Route 35 was like the big club at the time. And our second show ever was opening up for Skid Row, who had just gotten off a tour with Bon Jovi. So I'm like 18 years old, and I'm like, yeah, I like rock and roll. I had a very distorted, it was definitely too much too soon. And we were more popular than we deserved. We won like Uncle Floyd's most popular band contest, and we were just a lot of hype. We hadn't even really evolved. We didn't even have time to evolve. We hadn't even developed. We were so embryonic in our talents and our sense. I mean, there was something there, I'd like to think, but it was a lot going on real quick, and then. Relocated out to Denver, Colorado, because we were getting radio play out on like huge radio stations out there, and we parlayed that into Geffen Records coming out to see us. And basically, the A&R guy told me, "I think you're gonna do it. I think you're a good singer. I think you're a good songwriter. Your band's not ready yet. I'd like you to come out to LA, and I'll hook you up with some players that are ready." And for me, at that time, at my level of emotional development, I couldn't leave my band because I had grown up in a very turbulent I left home at 15, and my band was my blood. They were my family. I'm like, I'm not leaving my brothers behind, you know. And I'm like, yeah. Now at 56, I'm like, damn it, should have gone to L.A. You know, but I did. I brought them back, and we played everywhere you could play. Yeah, and if you recall back then, the East Coast Rocker and the Aquarian, they were that their telephone size thick with advertisements. In the late 80s, every bar that could fit 10 people in were putting in stages and doing showcase nights. I mean, if you wanted to play, you could play. You weren't going to get paid necessarily, or maybe the guy will feel sorry for you at the end of the night and give you $50 in a case of Budweiser and send you on your way. But we played and we played and we played. And we did a show at Murphy's Law in Long Branch, and I recorded it, and the band was as good as it was going to be. I went into Track C's studio in South River, and the producer there, Pinky Gilio, who did a lot of work with Glenn Burtnick back in the day, very good, talented mixing engineer and producer. He's like, it's a good song, but this might be better if you did this with me in the studio. And I'm like, what do you mean? Who's going to play drums? He's like, well, have you heard of MIDI? I was like, no, what's that? And then I learned about sequencing, drums and keyboard parts and stuff. And so we did the song called Can't Stop Me Now in WPST here in, was it Princeton? 97.5 was that? Really cool station at the time. And I had to go to this guy, Bob Spiden in Piscataway, to get one acetate cut so I could play it on the radio, because they'd only play a record. This guy was a really cool dude who had a 12-track studio that was all his own electronics. He hand-built stereo ribbon microphones. Just one of those guys that was like an invengineer in his, in his back garage. So I brought the song to PST. It started playing. I started getting some better bookings and stuff, and I just kind of realized I needed to reform the band with players that were having the same mindset as me, and just kind of sharing my vision of what we wanted to do musically, professionally, etc. So it was heartbreaking, but I recruited some of the best musicians I knew at that time. This drummer, Bob Nelson, who was like, he plays with Joe Bonanno and the Godsons of Souls to this day, great drummer. I got Michael Romeo from a band called Symphony X on lead guitar, and this is a progressive rock band that sells 200,000 copies of anything they release to this day, kind of underground, like Dream Theater kind of thing. And I took my old lead guitar player, Eric Walls, put him on bass, and then we got the original founding member of Phantom's Opera to play keyboards. His name was Jack Young, John Paul Yonoso, his Christian name. That band had started in 1969. And it had so many, and I mean, you probably heard of it back in the day. That band and that logo went through many permutations, but it'd been around, and there'd been a lot of different interesting musicians had gone through the ranks of it, including Alec and Tico from Bon Jovi, who were stolen by John to go into Bon Jovi, and then Joe Nivola went in. But anyway, long story short, I had gone into the studio owned by the guitar player with Gemini, and we recorded a single. And me and this guy Jack, the keyboard player, got along really well, and he played me some of his original writing. And I thought I could write a song a little bit, and then I was just like, no, you haven't learned how to write a song. This guy can write a frickin' song. So, and maybe that'll be the first song we play when I'm done talking about I'm So Tired. And he was just an incredible songwriter, and so I tapped him to join the band. He's also a great keyboard player. And after a while, we played some gigs, and I feel like with his influence in the songwriting and also Michael Romeo's presence as this ungodly the virtuosity out of this guy as a guitar player to this day is unparalleled. He's truly God-given talent. So they didn't really like Gemini, because Gemini was like, we were kind of like more like poser rock at the time, more like Poison. And these guys were like serious musicians. So now I'm in a band with serious musicians. I got to make some concessions. So I agreed to rename the band Phantom's Opera. And Jack gets the surviving members of Phantom's Opera to agree, because they want to see something come from it because they saw their friends go off into this huge band, and they're just kind of like, everyone's just kind of like, well, let's raise this banner and go to war, like. So we released our first album as Phantom's Opera, and we headlined Club Benet a lot. We headlined Bird Hill Nightclub. We played the China Club in New York City. We opened up for Southside Johnny at the Garden State Arts Center.
Oh, cool.
And we did our record release party at the Pony. We kind of were like doing everything you could do to get to the top of the heap. And we were getting calls from major labels like Jim Lewis, Mercury A&R. All kinds of people were interested. And just as we were getting real close to getting signed, the Nirvana album came out. And like overnight, we became the antithesis of anything that was even like remotely cool. Like we were just and then I was like, I don't know, 22, and I felt like washed up. It was over. Like, it was so it's like life wasn't gonna go on.
I've had a lot of people, believe it or not, say that when Nirvana came out with their first album, it just totally ruined it for everybody else.
Certainly everyone around in the Jersey rock and roll scene.
Because that just took the sound of the entire music industry in that direction.
Yeah. And I mean, I had friends that were like growing out their hair, putting on flannel shirts and moving to Portland or Seattle. I had other guys getting mullets and moving to Nashville. And like the ranks just fell. And like, then there was some of us that were like, no, we will die with our ship. We will not bend the knee. And ultimately, that album came out a couple years later on a German label. And for whatever reason, it got to number 4 on the import charts in Japan. And we were, I guess the grunge thing hadn't gotten as big in Europe and Asian markets. So there was still some life left in in those genres in other markets. So next thing we know, we thought it was all over, and a couple of years later, we're getting. Back then, there was faxes. There was no,
True.
So we'd get faxes from the label, and they'd be like, we'd see like Queen, Made in Heaven, Bon Jovi, These Days, Phantom's Opera, and we're like, we're back in the game, and then a Japanese label wanted to sign us directly, and they were like, "Here, we'll give you $100,000 if you do a record." We're like, "What?" Like we're like used to getting, we're still remembering the $50 in the case of Budweiser. So we're like, whoa. And it turns out that the first record was way more successful than we even realized, because there's a big festival in Europe called the Midem Festival, MIDEM. It's kind of like South by Southwest here, but over in Europe. And our German label was drunk and bragging about how much money they made off us and how little they reported to us, stuff like that. But we didn't care. We're just lucky that we had something to grease the wheels and afford production to go back in. And I remained with that project through 3 albums that were released in like 36 different countries. And we had a nice little taste of it, It was pretty cool. It was a good experience.
Oh, nice. Well, if you're just tuning in, I'm here with Coleman Brice on this week's Rock on Radio. Producer Claire is here as well. Sayreville. I grew up when I was in high school, once I turned 16. So 16,
you
17.
Grew up?
And no, not
I'm
yet.
still working
I grew
on
out,
it,
but not up. 16, 17, and 18, I had... actually, maybe even earlier, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Anyway, I had to get a permit from the ABC because I would go out as a helper on a liquor truck. And that was the route, South Middlesex.
Oh, cool.
I knew every bar in Sayreville, South Amboy, Perth Amboy.
That's a lot. I mean, South Amboy's in the Guinness World Book of Records. That's a lot of bars.
Mm-hmm. Places that don't even exist. I don't even know if they do exist. Mike's 3X Tavern.
Oh, my goodness. That was on Washington Road in Sayreville.
Right?
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
That's still there. Moira McCormack, daughter of the former Sayreville mayor, John McCormack, when we walk to her parents for dinner, we pick up a bottle of wine, and it's still there.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I think it's a different name, but that's still there.
Our sponsor, O'Connor's Bar and Grill, the first bar. He used to work at the Sayreville Bar.
Sayreville Bar.
Going back in the day, right? I remember.
The Mayer family.
Before that that quadruple dodecaplex movie theater was down there by the water.
Yeah,
it was
Amboy
just
Cinema,
nothing
yeah.
but swamps and dumping ground for everybody else. Sayer Bridge Liquors on the other side. I mean,
Okay.
So
You're talking you got some street cred. You're talking about the real deal stuff.
exactly. So I mean, I know. I mean, I can go on. I mean, there was a place in.
How about Colonial Liquors, Perth Amboy?
Was that the one by?
All I
By
know is that you
Ford's
could go
Avenue?
in there, you could be 12 years old, and they'd serve you. Not from experience. I had heard that.
My buddy lived on Florida Grove Road in Perth Amboy. So he was a Rangers fan, I was a Flyers fan, so we couldn't get tickets to either. So we would go up to see the Devils. And we would leave South Brunswick, because we worked together at Dow Jones. We would leave South Brunswick, drive up to, I want to say Riffy's on Woodbridge Avenue near Ford's, in Ford's there. We'd grab a pizza and a 6-pack. And we'd eat and drink, leave for the Meadowlands, go up 5 minutes before game time, and they'd be like, here you go. Here's seats, 3 rows off the
Finish
ice.
telling me about the delivery job. So did you get to go see bands underage by doing that? Or?
No. I didn't even have a driver's license.
Oh.
No. But, and then eventually, actually, when I worked for UPS back in 97, we went on strike, and I went back to delivering liquor after the first week. I was like, all right, I got a family. I got to do something.
I worked for UPS for a while.
Did you?
UPS is for real.
In Woodbridge?
Yeah, I think.
Raritan Center up there?
Raritan Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I got hired.
Yeah, I did the irregular unloads.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd that feel?
It hurt. It hurt.
I would look at them things and go, oh.
It's basically everything else
Yeah.
that couldn't be automated. Anything over 80 pounds.
Put 'em on the
or a
donkey
weird
cart.
side.
Now those things drive themselves. They're automated.
Wow.
The loader puts them on a cart, and then the cart works its way through the building on its own.
Well, I remember UPS, and I maintain my respect for UPS workers.
I delivered downtown Trenton for 20 years. So there's
I'm not going to make fun of you for having a few beers now.
that's right.
You earned them.
Correct. That's why this beer gut's bought and paid for over the years. So being so involved in music, well, I'll tell you what. Before we get into that, you had mentioned a song that you asked.
Oh
Claire,
yeah, let's play a Phantom's Opera song. This is every musician, especially in New Jersey. I think there's a lot of ego delusion that comes with that you can fall into. Everyone thinks they should have been bigger, or done better, or whatever, and some chips on many shoulders. But
yeah.
but this particular song that Jack wrote, and to me, like at its best, at least when we're talking in terms of popular repertoire, right? I think there's 3 elements that come together to make something perfect, and one is the song itself, how it's written, the melody, the chord structure. The other element is the sound. Does the production environment, like some of those old Motown records, there's kind of a scunginess to those drum sounds, but it's intrinsic to the flavor of the song. And then, of course, the final element, the icing on the cake, is the lead vocal. It's like the person that's inhabiting the theatrical, lyrical aspect of that repertoire. Can they merge that with the song and the sound? So when the singer, the song, and the sound come together in the right balance, I think that's where the magic happens. And I think we came. This is one song I wish more people had heard, because I think we came close.
Okay, and this is called
Waiting for Love.
Phantom's Opera.
Waiting for love. I'm so tired of waiting for love. So inspired, a calling to love.
Phantom's Opera here on Rock On Radio, and we are with the chief Phantom himself, Coleman Brice.
Who was the who was the singer?
Me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. I thought it was like multiple singers. I figured it was you and other people. That's just you mixed
Well,
it.
I was doing the lead vocal. The
Right.
harmonies were all of us. We would sing the harmony part, and then we would triple track it, sometimes
Nice.
quadruple
Gotcha,
track it to
gotcha.
get that Queen effect.
Right. Okay. That's what I was saying. That seemed like a lot of people in there, and I was just like,
Oh yeah, no, every part of that harmony was at least quadruple
oh,
tracked.
okay, that makes sense.
Have you seen or heard the movie The Jersey Sound?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, originally when it was conceived, the two gentlemen who conceived it were going to travel the entire state from Cape May Courthouse all the way up to Summit or whatever what is that up there?
High Point.
Yeah, whatever the highest, every bit of this state to see about a Jersey Sound. Does it exist?
Contentious subject.
And they, well, yes and no, because
You can't
listening-
possibly make everyone happy.
True, but listening to that and listening and recalling Bon Jovi and recalling Southside, and there's definitely, and then basically Springsteen's The River. Every bit of organ on that is the Jersey Sound. I mean, that's what you
Right.
hear when you're along the Jersey Shore area.
Absolutely.
Even today, not so much as much because things have become kind of borderline. Like there's a lot more angry guitar that's played, I think, today than there was when this was recorded.
Right.
But there's definitely a sound. So listening to that, just the beginning, reminded me of those early Bon Jovi records, or Slippery When Wet, so to speak.
Oh, it's undeniable. I mean, John was a huge inspiration and influence on me. I mean, if you're an aspiring hard rock musician in Saraville
Right.
in the mid 80s, and this guy literally around the block is doing it, we all wanted to be him.
Right.
I mean, I found my own voice over time and kind of turned into my own thing, for better or for worse. But it was, and he was influenced dramatically by Spring. I mean, we all beg, borrow, and steal from each other.
Right. That's the truth. Yeah, especially, and I've often in the past told the story about this program. I was driving home one day listening to B.B. King's, Tom Petty radio. And Tom Petty was telling a story about when first time he met B.B. King, and he played a riff, and he said to B.B. King, see this, B.B., I borrowed that from you. And B.B. King looked at him and said, borrowed? Hey, son, you stole that. We all steal from each other. And I get that in a lot of, especially rock and roll and blues, because there's only so many chords that you utilize on a regular basis.
Well, I kind of look at it as like a multi-generational conversation. This one guy talks over here, and a guy kind of absorbs it and then spits out a permutation that resembles it, but puts a different kind of
Spin
to
on it.
Yeah.
Right.
You find that in literature, too, different eras. And art. I mean, they all...
Work off each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the Impressionist paintings, like they all look so distinctly different, but yet they all had a dependency upon being inspired by each other.
But there you go. You just hit it, I think, Coley. Inspired. You could be inspired by a certain musical artist, but it doesn't mean you have to, like, what's the knock against Greta Van Fleet, right? That they sound exactly like Led Zeppelin. Who inspired them? Led Zeppelin inspired.
Well, I think
Greta
people
Van
have
Fleet.
issue with them because they don't acknowledge that inspiration.
Well, and that may be.
Yeah.
But when you hear it, it's like, all right, look at it. They're trying to imitate Zeppelin. So now you get the
No,
whole.
they're not trying. They do it
They
very
do.
well. I mean, it's quite spot on.
But you get the whole right there. Now you got people saying, "Well, they're not very original. They're just ripping off Zeppelin." And then there's this. So there, when you get one of the things I often say on this program, being a musician myself, is, look, there are certain bands, certain players, certain people, and I'll just off the top of my head because his name popped into my mind, Dave Vargo. Okay, if I hadn't talked to Dave in years, which would probably make him very happy, but if I hadn't talked to Dave in years,
I don't know about that.
and I heard a song on the radio, I'd be able to tell that was Dave Vargo. Not because it sounded like everything he's ever done, but because he had a style versus or he had a sound versus a certain style. You know what I mean? Like the Stones. I could always tell when the Stones put a new album out because, God, that sounds like the Rolling Stones.
Well, there are definitely artists, I think, that they find what works for them and they make that their brand and they stick with it and they don't really stray from the lines too much. And then there's other artists that are just driven to keep messing around with stuff, and they have failures and they have successes, but they don't let the successes chain them to their existing success.
Right.
And they, like, after Phantom's Opera and the whole end of our scene as we knew it with the grunge movement, I wasn't really going to go into grunge, but well, it's kind of funny. I started a job as a apprentice mastering engineer at Polygram Studios, which was a company that owned a lot of record companies like Mercury, Island Records, Motown, A&M, Def Jam, like Polydor, Decca, like so many labels. And at that time, CD reissue was a huge thing. Sam Goody, remember you'd go to the mall and you'd spend $18 on a CD. So that company owned like probably 300,000 or 400,000 master assets, and they were anxious to get as many CDs out to the reissue market as possible because it was just found money, right? It sounded better than LPs, and all of a sudden there was all these improvements in digital technology, and every 6 months A to D converters were getting better. So it was kind of a gold rush to get to recycle like all this stuff. And for me, that was my education because, I'd had to go in a vault and look for a dusty old half-inch tape and go into a studio and clean the tape and transfer it on a reel-to-reel machine into a digital environment. And, I mean, I got to hear Baby Love off the original mono.
No kidding.
The tape, and Motown at one point, to save money, they had a 3-track recorder. They were mixing onto only one track of the 3-track to save money on tape.
Oh, wow.
And that's what Baby Love is on. I remember when Polygram bought Island Records, right? Multi-million-dollar deal at the time, Billboard top front page story. Well, if you think about it, the only tangible asset a record company actually has is the media itself, whether it's an analog tape or a digital recording, whatever. That's the only tangible asset. They sent us all these tapes from Compass Point in the Bahamas, that famous studio where so many greats recorded at, that was owned by Chris Blackwell Violin. It was sitting in these crates were sitting in a warehouse, a physical distribution center for Polygram for bringing stuff out to record stores in unbelievable heat. And I'm like thinking to myself, who makes these? I'm just a 23-year-old kid at this point with a low-level job. But at the same time, if you think about it, it's a very important job. This is the kid who's getting the master asset of these major artists and taking care of it. And the guys, with Polygram had their main office in 825 8th Avenue, and I just remember being so stricken, even as a kid, even as unevolved and immature as I was at that time, like, shouldn't there be a little more TLC? Shouldn't people,
You would think, right?
Yeah, no, but it was an amazing job, and I got to hear, I had to listen to things I would not have otherwise listened to as a young person. Like worked on the Ella Fitzgerald box set. I did all kinds of running around finding all the tapes for all that stuff. I was just an assistant. I was just an assistant engineer. I was making coffee or sweeping the floor, and occasionally I was being delegated with tasks they didn't want to deal with. But I got to hear so many amazing recordings off the original
masters.
media.
Wow.
So yeah, like Billie Holiday, anything, all the hit parade era stuff, old country, and all the new stuff was coming in, you know. And I remember like hearing U2 Octung Baby come in, and like they deliberately had distortion on the vocals, and it was kind of, I was like, I don't know, are we going in the right direction here? Because like there was that golden era of recording where you had these beautifully acoustic designed rooms and live musicians, and then it just the digital revolution was great in one respect because, you know, if you get your parents to co-sign a major credit card, you can go get a Mackie 8 bus and an ADAT for $2,000, and for like $5,000 or $6,000, a couple mics for $5,000 or $6,000, you could set up a studio in your garage, and it created an indie music revolution, which was great. There's some music we would not have heard had these tools not become more affordable. But I think it was at an expense to fidelity, because there was something about when there was less records made and you had to be really good to get into a studio. You had to practice. You had to be ready for it. You remember how expensive a studio is. You weren't going to go write in the studio. Like, you're going to write in the garage.
You got to be ready to go when you
got
got
ready
there.
to go, or you're not getting back in.
Correct.
And so I guess I can see virtues and deficiencies of either mindset, but I do feel like, though, there was something great about leveling the playing field. And I mean, I've released 40 solo albums. I would not have been able to indulge myself if it weren't for the proliferation of affordable production gear, you know? Like, I can set up Apple Pro Logic and get a couple decent mics and get some toys, and I can make some pretty compelling sounds on my own. On the other hand, would I have released that much repertoire over the years if I didn't have the cheap, inexpensive way to completely indulge myself and think that every trivial little musical thought I had was worth publishing? Like, there's that too. Like, I don't know how many thousands of songs a day are published on like Spotify, but it's like now you've got AI and looping and auto-tuning, and there's people that don't even know anything about music that are just like telling their computer to make a song and they're publishing it. It's like, it's out of control. So I've gone full circle. I now do solo acoustic gigs because there's no cheating. You may or you may not like my voice, but it's my voice. And I'm really playing, and it's weird because, you know, when we were young, you go anywhere, you go to your corner pub and there'd be somebody singing and playing, and now it's like, wait a second, he's not using a harmonizer. Right. There's like even like these guys that call themselves one-man bands and they're playing to like karaoke tracks. I'm like, oh, killing me, man. Like,
or loops.
Well, looping, I think if I use a looper, but I do it there on the spot.
Right.
I still have to jump off that building, right? So I screw up sometimes. What I do feel looping is fair game because it allows you to loop, say, the chord progression, and then you can play a lead over the top of it. But you're really playing. It's not
Especially
like you.
if it's just you.
What's that?
Especially if it's just you.
Yeah, I mean, you really do have to you really do have to play it. It's that I think is different than playing over a pre-recorded backing track,
Right.
to me. And I mean, we all have our different sense of what's permissible or not. But for me, that's a pet peeve.
You know what my pet peeve is about looping? Is if I go out to see an act, whether I see them intentionally or by accident, like, oh, I didn't know there was music tonight, by accident, I mean.
Yeah.
And I see a guitarist up there with, looping away. Some of these guys will take 5, 6, 7 minutes to get their loop together.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, I want to hear music. I don't want to hear you play 3 chords.
No, I know what you're talking about. They're like, here, I'm going to do the
10
chord
minutes of
structure,
prep.
then I'm going to do
Right.
the drums. No. So what I'll do if I'm like doing like I play the shore a lot, and if I'm doing like a restaurant gig or something, I'll just record it while I'm performing the song, and then when I take a break from performing the song, I'll play it back, and then I'll play a lead through that section, turn it off, and then finish the song. I don't expect you to wait 20 minutes for me to play the actual song.
Well, that's what I mean. Like some guys take 7-8 minutes to set
Yeah,
up
yeah,
for a
no,
2-minute song, and it's like, all right,
Yeah,
you know.
no, it's stale. I agree with you. I don't care for that approach either. I mean, if it's some new age ambient thing, and that's that's part of their thing, and they're doing this sound collage thing. But if you're going to hear a cover musician, you don't want to wait 20 minutes to get to the hook.
You know who did a really good? Mark Sacco. My girlfriend and I went out. to
Sacco
hear-
loops all the time.
Yeah, but he's solo. So
Mark
I mean,
Sacco,
he's a
the
drummer.
drummer.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a drummer. But
I went to Mercer County College with him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he's a great drummer.
He is cool. But he does
He's
Jimmy
in
and the Parrots and stuff.
Jimmy
but he
and the
did.
Parrots,
But he did a solo gig at Killarney's, and
He plays my happy hours
Oh,
at
cool.
the Nottingham Tavern for me once.
yeah, but
or
he does
twice
it
a year.
really well because he does everything, and then he sings. So it was just seamless. It was just part of the
Yeah, I
whole
didn't
thing.
know his other music abilities when I went to college with him, but he was a great drummer.
Oh yeah, no.
And he had that charisma. You know,
yeah.
you knew he was gonna.
go places.
You know, he was
yeah.
gonna have some successes
Yeah.
in the business and be a lifer.
Oh,
for
yeah.
better for worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he Mark plays all over the place, actually.
Yeah, they go up a lot into Maine and stuff. They do travel. They actually went out to Chicago.
Maine, you don't say.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying they go do festivals all over the place. So. But
No,
that's-
I'm only saying that because I lived in Maine for 10 years.
Oh.
So
My nephew just got married in Maine, and my
Oh,
girls
nice.
and I went up there, and they want to move up there now. They're
it
like,
is beautiful.
We have to go back. But we were one of the first fingers as you came up through Brunswick, quick, hard right, and on that peninsula.
Oh,
was-
okay.
So it wasn't too far in. So it was.
I was
just
way up there, 45 degrees latitude, same
Ooh.
as Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Place called Eastport.
Wow.
Yikes.
Hardy music scene though.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. When I got there,
Oh no.
it's like the Jersey Devil run amok on an island in Maine. But it worked out. I performed more live gigs there than I ever would have anticipated, and there's one thing I really enjoyed about it, because of the access to Nova Scotia, and there was a tremendous amount of Celtic music and fiddle,
Oh, okay.
amazing fiddle players, and I got to play with some of those people, and it really informed me because I was just a Asbury Park alley cat, playing, we have a certain kind of stray cat kind of strut to the way we play. Up there, it's all gentle and nice and lovely, and you're feeling all these good feelings, and I was like, it was really cool. It was definitely enriching.
Uh-huh. Now, speaking of Jimmy and the Parrots, right, which of course is a
Cover band.
Jimmy Buffett tribute band.
That's a smart business move doing that. 'Cause Jimmy ain't gonna do it.
I'm going to tell you a very quick anecdote here that happened to me just yesterday. A couple days a week, I work at a golf course because I like to play golf for free. So I work at this golf course. So a gentleman calls yesterday and he says, this is Sergeant so and so of the Asbury Park Police Department. I was like, okay, how can I help you? He says, well, how are you today? I said, I don't know. Do I
You
have
tell
any,
me.
Do I have? I said, I don't know. Do I have any warrants? And he started laughing, and he says, No. The last few years, you guys have helped us out with a charity. They have some sort of cigar dinner benefit thing, and we've donated a free foursome for their door prizes to come play golf at Cream Ridge Golf Course. So I said, well, how much is this cigar dinner? And he tells me the price, and he says, and that includes cigars, of course, and all the beer and wine you can drink, and you get a free dinner buffet, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
As in Jimmy?
right? He's like, I said, a dinner? Yeah, you get a dinner buffet, and I'm like, gotcha. I'm like, Jimmy would be happy about that, I think, but. So I
Considering my dad used to call him Jimmy Buffet.
see that. There you go. I was cracking up about it. But speaking of Jimmy Buffet, let's do some more music,
Yeah.
and then we'll get into some other things.
Okay.
What would you like us to play?
How about You Don't Have to Like It? That was a song I recorded in Bradley Beach with my band, the New Age Blues Experience, and that was at the height of when I was playing Asbury Park like 3 or 4 nights a week back in probably 2010 or so.
Now, is this where you were on the Grammy?
No, that was my first. So, do you want to hear the Grammy story?
Sure, go ahead.
So that was my first album. So after the Phantoms Opera thing and the whole grunge thing kind of disinherited us, and we were all sad, and all our mullets kind of floated away. My friend Bob Nelson from Joe Bonanno, Godsons of Soul, he took me to a Grateful Dead show. I never really understood the Dead. I was, as an aspiring hard rocker, I didn't get it. It just sounded kind of sweet and sour and a little sloppy and off-key. But I loved the Deadheads. They were like, when I was in high school, the Deadheads were always playing hacky sack. They were always happy, smoking these weird cigarettes. They were like always in a good mood. When someone trashed my first car, my beloved 73 Dodge Dart, it was a Deadhead who took me to the junkyard to collect my drumsticks and my paraphernalia out of the car, and I was like, wow, this guy is so kind. So I always found myself intrigued by the Deadheads, but I didn't quite get the music. So anyway, Bob brings me to I guess it was Giant Stadium they were playing, and we pre-gamed in the parking lot, just a little wacky tobacco, some devil's lettuce, and a few beers, but nothing too crazy. But as and I'm not recommending this for any of you kids listening at home. I'm just talking about what happened to me. This guy we went to school with, Doug Skoko, amazing keyboard player, played just like Ray Manzarek. Side note, comes up to us, and basically he gave me a hit of the LSD that the band had on tour from Bear Owsley, like the real deal San Francisco stuff. And I took it, and I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but it was just as Jerry was tuning up, I was tuning in, and I had a transcendental psychedelic experience I mean, I know that sounds generic, right? But I wasn't really looking for it, and I kind of had almost like an empirical curiosity that I approached it with, but it's hard to explain. But it was the first time in my life that I was able to observe myself outside of my own ego perspective. And I think we get like a sense of self from not just our victories, but our wounds and our traumas. And like our ego's like, I'm not going to take we take our good things and we take our bad things in life, and we kind of cling to this ego shield, this mask, the social mask that we develop to protect ourselves. And the experience I had between the music and the LSD was the complete removal of the mask and just kind of being in a non-judgmental observational state. And I found it to be an incredibly healing experience. And that night, there's a song called 17G. That's where our that night I vowed to myself that whatever music, because when you're like right now, toxic masculinity is a big buzzword, woke or whatever. But those wounds that you take as a human being, they do, like, you want to be cool as a young musician. You want to do the stuff that's cool. You don't necessarily want people to know you're tender or geeky or experimental or avant-garde side. You don't necessarily allow yourself the full spectrum of the artistic or human experience because you're kind of locked into your self-perception. And that night, the hinges just got blown off for me. And I made a personal commitment that no matter what musical inspiration came to me, I would treat it like an equal child. And that's why I've done 40 solo albums, because every time one of those little weird things has come to me, I'm like, all right, I made a deal with the universe that I was going to indulge all this. So I did, and it's been interesting. But that night, that's when I started, I think, finding my own voice as an. I still kept elements of what initially inspired me, and I'll always hold those things dear. But I don't know. I just took off the training wheels, and then I just started kind of indulging all kinds of different musical ideas. And one of the things on that album, it was I had bought into the early music revolution. I got myself a little 8-track analog machine, and I tied it into a MIDI system, and I had a pretty hardy, like, self-contained studio at the time, and I recorded this song called 17G. 17G was the parking lot space where we were at while I was walking around the parking lot coming down from the experience, and I'm like, oh my God, where's Bob? Where's the van, man? Where's the van? And something told me, 17G. So I recorded that as kind of a tribute to Garcia. Mind you, I'm still working at Polygram during the day, and now I've moved up. I've gone from being assistant engineer to I'm now the chief archivist for the label, and I'm running that whole show. I had a meeting with the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and remember Michael Green? He was the president of that organization. He got on TV years ago, and he was bemoaning Napster and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That
okay.
guy. Anyway, I spoke in the meeting about how I think, labels aren't really respecting the cultural legacy they have with the ownership of these master assets, and we need to have stronger programs for backing all this stuff up, and so that we can preserve this music for future generations. And he was impressed with how I represented myself that day, and it was like all suits, and I was just there with like a collared shirt. I thought I was dressed up. I was still like a kid with my mullet. He's like, would you like to be on the Preservation and Technology Committee for the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences? I'm like, yeah. So, I weaseled my way onto that, and as a full-fledged member of NARIS, well, one of the magical powers you have is you can nominate things for Grammys. So I'm like, working at Polygram, I have access to the FedEx account. I sent a copy of my first CD to like every person in the whole thing, and they put me on the entry list.
Ooh.
Nice.
I rigged the system. I played the game.
Like Linda Chorney.
I did that, but I didn't brag about it.
Or make a movie.
Well, because I realized, on one hand, there was this ego stroke of getting the 40th annual Grammy nomination entry list and being invited to the Museum of Modern Art for a reception dinner and seeing your name. I nominated myself in like 15 categories. My name was all over. Producer of the year, record of the year. Like, I mean, it was over the top. And then I was seated next to Bo Diddley.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I felt so fraudulent, right? Because Kelsey Grammer comes up to my table. How you doing? Like he just assumes everyone there is meant to be there. No one knows that I gamed the system. So everyone's like, oh, who's this young artist on the rise? And it's like, well, it's just someone who figured something out, a backdoor approach to doing this. And Bo Diddley's like, well, congratulations. What are you here for? I'm like, oh, I didn't even have the heart to tell him. I was like, just, best instrumental, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I don't even deserve to be here. And I didn't. He's like, boy, you got to have respect for yourself. And I looked away because I was embarrassed. And he gives me a tap on the shoulder. He's like, when Bo Diddley is talking to you, most people listen. He's like, you got to believe in yourself. I'm like, thank you so much, Bo. You're right. But I was like realizing this whole thing is, as much as it was an ego stroke to see my name in that booklet, I realized this doesn't represent the will of the people. This isn't, because like when you're growing up watching the Grammys, you're thinking that this is reflective of what people really think. But no, it's only like a few hundred people that decide what that is. And the rest of us is this consumerist herd that's just like, oh, well, it's record of the year. Got to run on down to Sam Goody and buy it. And it was so disenchanting to me about the industry because I was like, on one hand, I was like, I could use this and exploit it, but I never did because it was, well, like, when Linda did that, I honestly I didn't find it in particularly good taste. Like I didn't think she was particularly Americana. I get it. I know what she did. I know she figured out the back door. But it's like I snuck in the back door. I stole a couple beers, but I didn't I didn't take the whiskey. I was just like, I don't know. So anyway, that's the Grammy story.
Seemed good at the time.
That's the truth.
And this song is called 17G.
No.
Oh,
is
if
it?
it's on Spotify, I'd love
I
to.
could not find. So tell me.
Coleman Brice. It's literally 17, the number 17 and G. Now, mind you, so you just heard the Phantom's Opera track, which sounded like Jersey Heartland, rock, pop, whatever.
Right.
Oh, tribute to Jerry. I got it now.
Yeah. Now, wait till you hear this
It has-
after the acid experience. You wouldn't believe it's the same artist.
All right.
And you don't have to play the whole thing. It meanders on. This, by the way, I nominated for Instrumental of the Year. I like Jeff Beck was on it, Joe Satriani, and I had the audacity to put this on there too.
All right. Here we go.
But we don't have to listen to the whole thing unless you want to kill time.
Was that the next
We
one?
were tripping out, man. Sorry, we just went
just
somewhere.
like, woo.
We were having deep in studio
Is it
suggestions about baseball.
Fall back to planet
AI.
Earth.
I got some editing to do, Chachi. Is that what
No,
you're
I
telling
think-
me there?
Oh, no, at an hour and 20 minutes, you could just take off the end of that song. That's all. I just went to the next song.
That would come under the category of editing, don't you think?
I would think so.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, though?
That's our karma for putting down AI. AI would have edited that properly already. That mistake would not have been made.
See, the thing about AI, just to continue our conversation on the air, people can't go into interviews now. Young people cannot be interviewed. They have no answers unless they're looking at what the answers should be on their phone. I've heard horror stories because I'm in HR. People who are going in for interviews can't hold a conversation with somebody. Tell me about your, greatest success and they're like, I don't know. They just have no
A
idea.
lot of young people have difficulty utilizing real computers too.
Mm-hmm.
They've grown up texting, which they can do. Like I mean, it's a massacre when I text, but sometimes the newer generation, when they try to utilize a regular keyboard, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so.
I do a lot of things.
True story. Now, so how do they operate over at Asbury Media?
Oh, our AI staff. Well,
Tell us about Asbury Media. You like how I segued?
yes, it's not the Segway you ride either.
No, it's the
right.
segued.
Asbury Media. I've been working there for 18 years. Tom Ruff is the owner, who I met at Polygram, who legitimately won 3 Grammys. He didn't game the system. He really won them. Historical reissues.
Who is the owner?
Tom Ruff,
Oh, okay.
a mastering engineer. Yeah, and well, what we're doing now, we recently invested in a Dolby Atmos studio that enables mixing and mastering for Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos is an immersive sound format that basically you're not just hearing left and right, you're hearing left, right, up, down, behind you. It's a completely 3-dimensional immersive audio experience.
Like a surround sound?
Yes,
Okay.
but not just surround going up too, and go like it's another dimension to surround. It's an evolution of surround sound, and it really lends its. I don't think anyone's made the Sergeant Pepper of this format yet. I think what most people are doing so far are just kind of like mixing stuff and adding a couple cool things here and there. But if you really think about it, you know, musical and theatrical applications where you could imagine listening to a record that's recorded live, but it's not just the music that's live. What if you actually wrote a screenplay too, so that when you're up front, you hear the music like you're walking up to the stage, but if you go towards the back of the room, you can hear a conversation the bartender's having with one of the people hanging out there, or you could move to the other side of the room and sit down in a seat and hear a husband and wife arguing about something. Like, it's got some really amazing potential, and I don't think people have really embraced the possibilities that could be realized with this format yet. So it's been very frustrating because I'm trying to evangelize it while I'm trying to understand it myself. It's pretty new, and the labels haven't done a particularly great job with it because they're just trying to get another money grab reissuing content or whatever.
Yeah.
So what's happening is producers are handing in records and they're not getting control of the Dolby Atmos mix. So they've got, like, you know, kids with headphones just kind of running it through some effects or whatever to call it spatial. And it's unfortunate because I don't think enough consumers are really getting to experience the potential of it, and I fear it's not going to reach its potential because of you know, the greed. It's, you know, the music industry, like any other business, you know, like, you have to wait for your tomatoes to turn red before you make the sauce. And a lot of people don't want to be, you know, cultivating a business that's sustainable. You got to be patient. You got to wait. It's like gardening. You got to take your time with it, and then there is a harvest season, but you have to wait for it. And I feel like some of the spatial audio formats are having an uphill climb because of corporate greed, unfortunately. But there's amazing stuff happening, and you know, it's always, you know, the vanguard's always the people that are doing it in a basement somewhere and like just putting stuff together and improvising. So it'll happen, but the technology itself, it's amazing. I wish I could describe it verbally adequately, but I'd love for you to come down to the studio sometime and experience it in a real 7.1 setup. It's really, and like listening to like orchestral recordings that are recorded in like real, like, you can get all the detail of an acoustic hall. Have you ever been somewhere and heard an acoustic music experience in a hall? And then you listen to a CD and you're like, it's good, but it's just not that.
Right.
Well, we've gotten a lot closer.
Now, where is Asbury Media located?
Bond Street or 421 Bond.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
In fact, just last week, we're not too far from the Bond Street Bar.
Right.
Who, you remember the Saint, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Bond Street has a club that they're now calling the Basement, and they've been letting us record some original music shows
I
down
see
there.
you just did Matt O'Ree, yeah?
Yeah, and he delivered a stunning performance last Thursday, and we not only caught studio, we had studio microphones over all the equipment and everything else, but we also had ambient microphones all over the place to pick up the actual room itself, so it'll lend itself towards that Dolby Atmos capability that we're talking about. So what we've done basically, I used to run a label called Area Records in Asbury, and we recently resurrected that. So instead of waiting for someone to come, we're like, well, we're going to have to just start doing stuff so people can stop whining about the potential and start exhibiting the potential, right? So the first release we did was Billy Hector, a longtime blues aficionado, and back in 2018, he had recorded a show at the Saint with a full horn section and just a slamming band. So we recently remixed that, and that was the first thing on a revived Area Records and Dolby Atmos release. And hopefully, unless Matt has another label do it, which is fine, but I'll extend the same offer to him. So we want to just start cataloging great live recordings and releasing them on this format in hopes to inspire people to get more familiar with it and eventually, get more business doing that. We still do regular audio mastering too, and we're happy to do it, but we're just so enthusiastic about this format. We're just like trying to lead by example, I guess is the best thing I could say.
Now, how many are involved in this other than you and Tom? Is there a big staff at Asbury Media, or you guys it?
Well, Tom is the owner. He doesn't do as much engineering as he used to. He's kind of like more the mentor and the sage and the guy we try to keep happy. The guy that's kind of moving and shaking, trying to get clients through the door. And then for the Dolby Atmos stuff, we're working with an amazing young engineer, 24 years old. He wrote his thesis on immersive audio, and he's just an old school audio geek. This kid's 24, but he's got the soul of a curmudgeon. I don't know. He's just totally dedicated to music and recording, and he's young, and he's got those fresh ears that just pick up everything.
Right.
Know? So he's our Dolby Atmos wizard in training. Andy Bova from a studio called Simple Sound, a drummer, plays with Rick Barry and is in a band with John Stewart. He does some audio mastering for us. Jim Pinella, who used to work at Lake House Music, he does some mastering.
I know that name.
Yeah, he does some mastering for us, and we have some other projects that we do involving software testing and technical support for a major label, which we can't talk about because we have a non-disclosure agreement with them because we do deal with proprietary systems to them. But that project just wrapped up after 17 and a half years.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. It started with a 6-month contract, and we're kind of like, so we got this contract to do this work, and it was tedious but somewhat simple. And Tom needed some workers quick. I had just left Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab. I was, when you used to go to Sam Goody and there was the gold CDs that said original master recording.
Right.
Well, part of my life, I was out in California. I was their vice president of marketing and communications for a while. I left there. Well, this is actually a really good story, right? So this guy bought this label, Jim Davis, has a company in Chicago called Music Direct. He bought all the intellectual property rights associated with Mobile Fidelity, bought their studio out in Sebastopol, California, resurrected the label. I was working at a rival label in Hollywood called Classic Records that was reissuing the Led Zeppelin catalog on vinyl, 180 grand pressings, mastered by Bernie Grunman. They hired me away from him. At the time, I was like, this is cool. I'm going up to wine country, you know? And it was cool. It was great. I was still drinking at the time, so I was well lubricated. But it was... I just lost my train of thought.
I feel your pain.
The guys in Chicago.
So yes.
Wine
All right. So
country.
the thing is, this guy from Chicago. He was a fierce entrepreneur. He still is, and he tended to hire other alpha dogs. So we had a hard time getting anything done because everyone was fighting for leadership and trying to push things in a particular direction. But I could fill a whole episode with stories about my experience there. But finally, I'd cold call people like, hey, you want to put out a 180 gram vinyl? Hey, you want to put out a SACD? Like I was the cold caller guy that tried to talk to artists and artist managers to. Anyway, one day I called Jeff Jampel, who was the manager of the Doors and in charge of all the Doors' remaining estate, and
They were on Polydor, weren't they? Okay.
they were on Elektra. Anyway, this guy took my call. He invited me out to they had some Doors thing going on out there, the Rainbow Room. They're having a party. Flew out to this thing. We shook hands on a deal to release the Doors catalog on vinyl and surround sound SACD. Doors pretty psychedelic. Imagine them twirling around.
Right.
So this was a big deal. So I tried to leverage this deal. I was like, listen, Jim, if I reel this in, you got to let me lead the company because we're going in so many different directions, and I want to have more. I just let me do what you hired me to do. He's like, if you land this, you're moving back to California, like whatever you want. And I'm like, I was out there I'm like looking at apartments, you know. I'm like, I'm going back. I'm getting back to Hollywood. Anyway, a lot of hype, a lot of hoopla. Everyone's excited. Gonna have a press release on the floor of the CES convention in Las Vegas. And I'm like, all right, finally. Warner Brothers served an injunction on us. Elektra still had the contractual rights, and the deal just blew up in my face.
Yikes.
And I get back to Jersey, and my boss calls me on Valentine's Day, and it's like, I know this isn't romantic, but I'm going to have to kiss you goodbye. Because I couldn't go back into that environment where I'd kind of gotten my peacock feathers all wound up, and I was like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I was not going to be able to be accepted back into the Lord of the Flies business ecosystem. I had just turned down a job from Tom Ruff, who asked me to lead this metadata validation project for this major label. It was a major label that bought another major label, and they had a legacy database system that had to play nice with a newer server-based database system, and then they had to all join. So we needed a team of people that would physically look at all these different data entry records and try and reconcile what was a perfect match. And it wasn't hard. It was hard because it was so tedious that it was difficult to maintain your focus on it. It was supposed to be a 6-month contract. And he's like, do you know anyone who needs a job for 6 months? I'm like, yeah, we're in Asbury Park. Every musician. So I got like Rick Barry and Brian Amsterdam. And I just got the Bad News Bears, basically. Kids, people who've never had a real job. And I'm like, hey, man, this is a computer. And somehow, not only did we get through that project, but they gave us more projects. Our team gained proficiency, and we ended up dealing with 8 different internal systems they had, and it was a long ride. Yeah.
Rick Barry. Whatever happened to Rick Barry?
Well, I know he's not with Asbury Media anymore because that project is going to another company, but he's been with us this whole time.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he's continued to write and record. I mean, he's played Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
He's done some cool stuff.
I hadn't heard anything about him until you just mentioned him in years. How about that?
Area put out his record Declarations of Codependence. And he had a song called Courage for a Rainy Day that was really amazing song. All the songs, he came to me when I started Area. Area had a distribution deal with Universal for pressing and distribution, but we're basically left to ourselves for everything else. It's basically, the major labels were trying to figure out how they're going to stay alive because file sharing, LimeWire, Napster, all these things were just decimating sales. So basically, the distributors, the big ones like Warner Brothers and Universal, they were signing a lot of indie labels just to see what would stick, just to see if they could find another Sub Pop or another Stax or another. So I've always been good to come up with some jive talk. And remember, I got myself into the Grammys, which we'll now call the Scammies. So I made a pitch to hey, Asbury Park deserves a farm team label, it's like a miniature Austin here. No matter what's been going on in Asbury Park. And I mean, the first time I played Asbury Park, I played the Stone Pony when I was a teenager, 1987. And I kid you not, after we got off stage, we warmed ourselves in a 55-gallon trash barrel fire on the boardwalk. The cops came up to us, warmed their hands, said, "You guys all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, see you later." Try doing that now.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
My point is that even in its hardest times, the spark in Asbury Park, there's always been that Jersey sound.
Music.
I call it the Jersey Shore sound, but yeah, I don't know why, but there's always been something about it that even in the most dire times, the music was still there. There used to be a club called the Moon Rock on Cookman Avenue. We're talking 1999, plywood. Most of the windows on Cookman Avenue were plywood, right? I used to drive, my band and I would show up in my 72 VW bus, and we would pray it didn't break down on the way home from playing the Moon Rock. But it was the coolest place. You'd see surfboards, fishing poles. You'd see some motorcycles. You'd see some jalopies. It was this bohemian vibe for a while where people were just coming to hear the music. And it was gritty, really gritty. I mean, really, 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 really gritty. But there was also an authenticity in that grit that is no longer, I don't know if it can ever truly go away because it's so resilient, that music spirit in Asbury Park, but it's not as prevalent as it once was. The gentrification has kind of relegated music as a supporting role rather than being the, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just not quite the same. And that could just be me just, get off my lawn. I don't know.
No, it's true because what you just spoke of was about 5 years before my time. I didn't start going to Asbury and playing. My very first gig ever in Asbury was a Labor Day weekend at the Wonder Bar. Myself, there was another band called Agency.
Agency was on Area Records.
Were they?
Yeah.
Agency?
Yep.
Well, their bass player.
Well, the band I was talking about. Mm-hmm. All right, so Agency was Brian Saint on lead vocals.
Right.
Okay. Well, the band that played at the Moon Rock that I was just talking about was me and Brian Saint in a band. It was called Brian Saint and the Sinners.
Yeah. That's cute.
Nice. Yeah, that was Brian and Joe
Savio
on drums.
Who's in my band, the New Age Blues Experience now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
You got to tell him that you got to say hello to him. I haven't talked to Sav in, it's got to be years. It's probably since Agency broke up.
He
friendly
runs a
with their
company
bass
called
player.
Modern Material now.
Okay.
He's a gun manufacturer.
Oh, no kidding.
Like AR-15s and stuff, like military grade stuff. Sells it to a lot of the police forces in the state.
Nice.
there were quite a few gigs where Sav and I shared a drum kit, even at over the years, because I was in a band with Mike Mentaliano and this guy
okay.
Bob Furta and Mikey O'Grady. We were called WC Soulshine. So we were the opening act. Agency went on second. Then Status Green was the the headliner. That was my first exposure to Asbury.
Cool. Well, that was a classic bill back then.
Yeah, but it was that though was kind of on the downslope, because shortly after that I got into Joe Weimer's band, and everything was like singer-songwriter at that point. You know, you had the Twisted Tree on Cookman Avenue, and you had all these little. They hadn't even begun
Side
the
note: the
rejuvenation
most
yet.
terrorizing gig of my life ever, and I've played thousands at this point in all kinds of different capacities. But I opened for George Worth at the Twisted Tree. Let me tell you something. As a rock,
That man can write songs.
oh my God! Talk about getting it handed to you. Frightening.
Last Kiss. Tell me why that didn't get a Grammy nomination. Or
Because
something.
he should have talked to me. I would have told him how you get it, or he should have called Linda Chorney. I don't know.
Claire, how much time do we have left?
We have 16 minutes.
Oh, okay. We got time for another tune?
Yes, we do.
What would you like us to play there?
What have we
Mr.
got
Brice?
left?
We have You Don't Have to Like It.
Okay, well, this is Savio on drums.
Oh,
Jay
no
Walker,
kidding.
Jay Walker, who was in Gina and Dragster on bass. This was around that time period. So that's a good little oral snapshot of the time. It's funny now. This is a straight up blues tune, and that year Scott Stamper and all his remember all the controversy around the Asbury Music Awards.
Oh, yeah.
It was very, very heated. Anyway, this song got us nominated for Top Avant-Garde. Tell me what's avant-garde about this.
You know, I am the Susan Lucci of the Asbury Music Awards. I've been nominated like 8 times.
I hear you.
Stamper always sticks me in a category with like all the big names from the Rat and Brookdale and all that stuff.
At least you're on.
And I'm there at the bottom. Like they're like, who's this guy? But what's the name of this?
You Don't Have to Like It.
There you go.
This is another little mellow one for you. Coleman Brice, New Age Blues Experience.
Yeah. You don't have to like it. You don't have to want it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to want it. You don't have to like it. Oh, you don't.
There we go. Avant-garde.
Yeah, I had to get a little.
Nice. Nice.
That was my little way of telling Scott, dude, did you listen?
Avant-garde.
That's all my God.
Oh, gosh. Is there a website? I mean, we can find everything that you're into, or what do we have here?
Yeah, well, we got ColemanBrice.com, where I post links to my releases and my gig schedule, which is, thankfully, I'm booked through Christmas. I play the shore a lot because I live in Lavalette. I'm playing this Sunday. Well, when will this air?
Sunday.
Oh,
7 p.m.
I am omniscient. I'm in two places at once. I'm playing on stage right now at Point Lobster Bar and Grill on Arnold Avenue in Point Pleasant Beach from 4 to 7 p.m. ColemanBrice.com. To listen to Billy Hector's new release on Area Records, it's AERIA Records.com. And Asbury Media, if you want to know about Dolby Atmos mastering and you want to come listen to some stuff and let me talk you into utilizing our absolutely incredible services, it's asburymedia.com. And I also am doing a podcast now.
Yeah, tell us about that. What's up
Okay,
with that?
so we did the Atmos record with Billy Hector, and then we released it on the label, and then we realized we got to promote the thing. And I'm like, yeah, I was podcasting way back in the day, and I was like, all right, well, I remembered how to do an RSS feed and all that stuff, so I brushed up on my podcast etiquette and figured out what to do, and we started with the Billy Hector interview, which was amazing, by the way. Billy Hector is an interesting guest. You should really bring him on here. We conducted the interview in his home studio, or it's more like a pirate's den. I can't even explain the patina of rock and roll paraphernalia coming out of this place. He lives at the Jersey Shore, and he's got this split-level house with like a semicircle driveway, perfect for a musician, so you can just load in and load out as easy as possible. Not much for landscaping. He kind of lives in a bamboo forest that he didn't plant.
Oh, no. That's the worst.
Well, no, he loves it. It's
Oh, really?
just, oh yeah,
You're
you can't see
creep,
his,
so.
you can't see his, it's just like he's got only thing missing is a panda bear munching on this stuff. It's a lair. So I started the podcast for that, and it kind of very quickly is growing its own legs, and it's now on Apple Music, it's on Spotify, it's on Amazon, it's on iHeartRadio, it's on Spreaker. In Germany, it's on Deezer. I guess because of all the catalog of all the music releases, I was in some tier of distribution that helped me get it out to wider distribution outlets.
Okay.
And so a friend of mine who runs a label called Metallic Blue Records is like, hey, I really enjoyed your interview with Billy Hector. Would you be interested in interviewing Terry Luttrell, who was the first lead singer for REO Speedwagon, and then went on to start a band called Starcastle? And I guess the podcast kind of took off a little bit because he is there's a conflict, I guess, where the old bass player got thrown out of the band after back surgery, and all the fans are mad at the original Kevin Cronin, the guy's like, keep on, look, that guy. Mm-hmm. Well, he threw his bass player out after like 40 years of service, and people weren't cool with it. I got the original singer talking about it, so there's all kinds of internet, when stuff gets flamed on the web. So this guy gave me a tell-all interview on Monday, and he talked about, he partied with Hugh Hefner and Walter Cronkite and Rod Serling and Eddie Van Halen. He toured with Rush, Kansas, Boston, Fleetwood Mac, Gentle Giant. And then he lost it all and was driving a FedEx truck. Like guys had an incredible journey. So, yeah, that's Open Mic with Coleman Brice, and that's on any podcasting, any mainstream.
How often do you do new episodes?
I don't know. I just started it for the Billy Hector thing, and now I'm in the podcast business. So, wait, what are you doing later? You want to do it? You want to be on my show next?
I actually probably about 7-8 years ago now, maybe 10 at the most years ago now. No, would have been, yeah, maybe. I actually had Billy Hector on this program, and he brought his nephew with him,
Oh, cool.
who at the time was only like 10 or 12 years old. But the kid was incredible.
I'll bet.
I was like, wow. Billy's always an interesting character, that's for sure.
He's inimitable. But I'll tell you what, he can still bust up a Strat like nobody's business.
Joe Weimer was just telling me, you knew Elvis, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew him, but I was acquainted with him. I wasn't friends with him. I didn't suffer the loss that so many people did. He was a very beloved character.
Al and I were in about a half a dozen bands together, and he was you're right. He was a character. He really was. Quirky, but he would play with anybody. Nobody was, even if he knew you were not that much of a talent, he would treat you like you were the greatest talent on the planet.
Yeah.
He was just that kind of person. So Elvis, I interviewed Weimer for an Elvis tribute I did a couple weeks ago on here. And Weimer was saying how she was never really taken seriously by the Asbury Park community as far as if she tried to do anything other than blues music. So she's like, I thought, well, I'm going to learn how to play guitar, and I'm going to learn from the best. So she went to like Sonny Ken.
There you go.
And she went to Billy Hector, and she went to, I can't remember who the third guy was that she went to. But she said Billy Hector was the only one that threw her out. Billy Hector said to her, you don't need to learn how to play guitar. You need to learn how to practice. Get out of here till you can practice at least a half-hour a day, then come back and see me.
Hey, that might have been the tough love she needed. I bet you she
What
did.
she said, yeah. Yep. And then she started taking lessons, I think, with Sonny Ken after that. And, now she can play, leads and everything else. So.
Yeah, and she's got a great voice.
Yes.
Definitely.
Correct. So, out of everything you've done, and anybody who's listening to this can tell you've done a lot. Is there an area of it that you found to really be your sweet spot, your favorite, your niche? You're a musician, so you're still doing that. You did the whole, the engineering thing and the archiving and what is it for Coleman Brice that?
How much time we got left?
Yeah.
She just gave me the 5 fingers.
Play that last song. When I
Okay.
sit down with an acoustic guitar and I sing, I've learned to just love the simplicity of a good song and sing it again. And it's a good way to close. This is just me singing onto my iPhone. I do a lot of cover gigs now, and I really love falling in love with music again. And I'll kind of just poke around for songs, and I'll find the lead sheet online, and then I'll kind of do a rough version on my phone sitting up in I live in a coop, and I can see the bay and the ocean in a family home that my grandfather built many years ago in La Valette, and I'll just look at the waves and just kind of nibble on tunes. This is one I just recently added to my cover repertoire.
What's it called?
It's a Bee Gees song,
To love somebody.
To Love Somebody, and this one's going out. This one's going out to my fiance Maura McCormack.
Windy up here. There's a light, a certain kind of light
And there's a way. Everybody says to do in every little thing. What does it bring if I ain't got you? Ain't got you, baby. You don't know what it's like, baby. You don't know what it's like to love somebody, to love somebody the way I love you. In my brain, I see your face again. Know my frame of mind. You ain't gotta be so blind, and I'm blind, so very blind. I'm a man. Can't you see that I am? I live and I breathe for you. What good does it do if I ain't got you? Ain't got you, baby. You don't know what it's like, baby. You don't know what it's like to love somebody, love somebody the way I love you. You don't know what it's like, baby. You don't know what it's like to love somebody, to love somebody the way I love you. You don't know what it's like, baby. You don't know what it's like. Love somebody, to love somebody the way I love you.
That's such a classic tune.
Yeah, no, I think I saw a YouTube clip or something. I was like, damn, I forgot about that. That's what I like to do. I like when I'm like cruising around looking for new tunes to sing at bar gigs and stuff, just like find that old dopamine hit and see if I can find myself in that song.
Right.
And yeah, it was a recent one I decided to add to the set list.
I remember one night I was a new parent, so to speak. My son was almost 3, and my daughter was just born, and she was fussing. And it was the weekend, so it was my turn to get up with the kids. And we used to keep a radio, 102.9 out of Philly, before it became classic rock, was smooth jazz.
Oh, okay.
And we used to keep that on.
Right.
Well, they went through this transition phase between classic rock and smooth jazz, where they were like yacht rock
Yeah.
type of deal. And so I recall, we would keep that on to kind of just help her get to sleep.
Yeah.
And I recall going in and just staring at her and thinking, my God, I got a little girl now. My son, and now I got a little girl. and that song came on the radio.
Oh, cool.
And here I am, whatever the heck I was, 32 years old at the time, to love somebody the way I love you. And I'm staring at this little bundle of heaven, and guess what?
What?
No, never mind. Anyway, and here I am, and I got tears streaming down my face because I'm like, wow, and so it was kinda
Which
cool.
only makes sense because we're literally in heaven because this is where Angel rehearses.
Correct. That's right. You hear that, Charlie?
That's right.
I often wonder what the world would have been like if the two bands signed to Casablanca by Neil Bogart, Kiss and Angel, would it be like a nicer world if they're the ones that got that big?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right?
like would things be different? I don't know.
Yeah.
Things I think about at 3 a.m.
Well, there you go. Well, Coley, thanks so much, man, for making the trip.
Thank you. I was so grateful to be able to share part of my story and see you again and to meet you. And
Yeah, it's been a long time since
been a
you
long
and I are in
time.
the same room
well,
together.
hopefully it'll be sooner.
That's
I hope
right.
so.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Come back anytime, man.
Next week, I think we have Alexander Simone,
Yeah.
I guess.
That'd be great.
Next week,
Great to see him
coming back
again.
in. So,
Who dat?
and who dat? I don't know if he's got who
No,
dat
no,
or
just-
not.
just
This
him,
might
but
be a solo
yeah,
thing. I'm
yeah.
not sure. We'll have to get on that.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Coley, again, thank you, man.
Thank
for
you.
making a trip
Thank
here
you. It was
to
an
the
honor and
hinterlands.
privilege.
So,
Hey, and anyone's got Coleman in their name is all right with me.
that's right. Until next week, rock on!
Rock on.